WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have something from Ballechin, belongs to, of course, Edradour. This is their peated version. I love it when we have one name for the peated version and one name for the non-peated version. Tobermory, Legic, Ballechin and Edradour, very good. And this is the Ballechin Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, SBCS, 15 years old. It is the first release exclusive to Germany. Limited edition, 3,126 bottles from a vatting of first fill bourbon barrels and second fill Oloroso sherry butts. Non-chill filtered, natural color, 59.4%. Yay! So my first question is 3,126 bottles just for Germany. That's a lot. All right. So why do I say that? Now, I personally have done some releases of about 300 bottles. I can get those sold, but I cannot at the moment get 3,000 bottles sold. And I think it's exactly the same problem we have here with Ballechin. This has been now in the shop since June. It is now September, and it's still everywhere. So 3,000 are a lot of bottles. I bought 3 bottles. I shared 3 bottles with my friends and so on. So this is very, very good. Now I'm going to have a new theory. So my new theory is I often hear that between 70 and 80% of all the flavor comes from the cask. Now I think that's probably going to be true for our bourbons. 100% of the color should come from the cask. Not always the case in Scotland and Ireland, shame on you, but at least with straight bourbons that is the case. Now, I'm not sure if that is really true concerning peated whiskeys. The cask influence is there, yes, but I think the peat and the type of peat used is actually more important than maybe even the casks used. Why do I mean that? Because I mean there are different type of peat flavors from different type of distilleries. You have Southern Ireland peat, which is different than Northern Ireland peat. You have Highland Park peat from Orkney, which is different than our Balvenie peat, which is different than our Ballechin peat. So my first question of the day is does anyone know exactly what type of peat, where does it come from, does Ballechin use? Now, I mean, yes, it's Highland peat. Thank you. Highland is a very big area. It doesn't help me at this moment. All right, so I'm digging into the topic, pun intended, into the topic of peat. And peat forms when plant material does not fully decay in acidic and anaerobic conditions. And it is composed mainly of wetland vegetation. Principally, bog plants include mosses, sedges, and shrubs. As it accumulates, the peat holds water. This slowly creates wet conditions that allow the area of wetlands to expand. Now, there are different types of peat. I did not know this. I'm learning, and I would like to share this information with you. We have so-called fibric peat. Fibric peats are the least decomposed types of peat and consist of intact fibers. So if you mow your lawn and you put, for example, the lawn clippings into the compost pile and you leave it there for a couple of weeks, it starts decaying, but it's not yet earth. You can still see, it's still grass and so on. That's basically our fibric peat. The next level of decomposition is the hemic peat. These are partially decomposed, and so I'm not sure if we use hemic peat in the Highlands or in Islay, but I do know that we use the sapric peat. Those are the most decomposed. All right, so we have fibric, hemic, and sapric. Who would have known that there's actually a science to peat? Well, I could have known, but who knows? All right, and so we also talk about engineers mainly describe a soil as peat, which has a relatively high percentage of organic material. This soil is problematic because it exhibits poor consolidation properties and cannot be easily compacted to serve as a stable foundation to support loads such as roads and bridges. So my son lived in the eastern part of Germany, studied over there, and I would go visit him. And one day, basically, the Autobahn was closed. Why? Because they had built this bridge over this peat bog, and the peat bog they basically collapsed a little bit and shifted, and they had to rebuild the bridge using millions and millions and millions of euros to do a whole different system. And not good for builders, very good maybe for peat. All right, so let's go to Ballechin on the nose. It's fruitier and sweeter than I thought it would be, and the peat, it doesn't slap you in the face, at least not on the nose. On the palate, it does a little bit. I have an ashy smoke. I have a little bit cookie dough. I do have maybe some blackberries and some raspberries. It's not 59.4% that it's very, very integrated. It's an age statement, guys and girls. Yeah, it's 15 years old. It's cask strength. It's a mixture of bourbon as well as second fill Oloroso sherry. Well done. Transparency is given here in all manners and form. The only thing that I dislike about this is the price. It's 109 euros over here, which I think is a lot more. I would have went for somewhere around 70, maybe 80 euros, and it would have been 80 euros a little bit expensive, but 109, ooh. I just want to show you how nicely done. Look at that little imprint of the distillery building here. Well done, Ballechin. I'm going to compare it to something that I still have, Whitlaw. This is part of the Viking series from Signatory Vintage. This is a Highland Park, so it's not the best comparison, but it is cask strength. It is 7 years old. It is around 110 euros, and it is cask strength, as I mentioned. It is 59.6. So my theory at the moment is that we have different types of sherry. We have the syrup sherry, which this definitely is a representative of. We have the sulfur sherry, which I hope the Ballechin is not a representative of. And we have the good sherry, which I hope this is a representative of. So on the nose, this is a little plasticine, a little bit more of a artificial grape flavor. This is more of a plum flavor. Much more vanilla, much better. I would rather have this any day of the week than this. All right, let's try 59.4%. I need a new hand movement. If you know my hand movement, it'll be like this is how I experience the taste. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it's a wave formation. I can do this where I talk about how hot the whiskey is. Now I need a new movement for how much peat I have. And so I do this, I'm going to go bam, bam. And the thing is, there's a lot of tannins in here. It's very dry, astringency, a lot of tannins. I'm not a great fan of the tannins, but they are in here definitely. And it's a ash peat. It is not a heather peat, Highland Park. It is not a medicinal peat. It's an ash peat. It's not a smoky bacon peat. It's ash, it's ash, it's ash. So it's very interesting what type of peat is in here. It is berry. There are berries, but it is a little bit of chocolate, but a lot of that sour, bitter moment is involved. Interesting. This is a very well composed whiskey. If this is what they're going for, and I'm sure this hit the palate of many people in Germany, I'm going to recommend this bottle a lot. I'm going to give it a C++, B-. It's more of a C+ to me because I'm not a peat head yet. I'm working my way there. I recognize and I can totally appreciate the quality of this whiskey. It's not my wheelhouse, but it's definitely where it should be, could be, and has to be in order to be a great whiskey. 15 years, no need whatsoever to dilute it, and yet I'm still going to do it. Why? Because the whiskey gets a tiny, tiny little bit better. The tannins disappear a little bit. The fruitiness comes out more. The ash is kind of a tiny little bit dissipated, and it does water it down a tiny bit. So it is 59.4%, diluted down to 50%. I have the feeling that the peat hits quicker. Yeah, but it's also tiny little bit sweeter and tiny little bit more vanilla in here. Very, very well done. Value for money, I'm still going to give it a D+. I think under €9 is too much. 70 to 80 euros would have been my price range. €80, a little bit of the ooh, but that's okay. They're in the shops. This is going to be the batch 1, so apparently there's going to be batch 2. And they'll have to figure out what they're going to do with this and see if they're going to reduce the price a little bit or just wait and play the long game and wait for a few other influencers as myself over here in Germany push this whiskey and say, hey, good stuff, highly recommendable, a little bit on the expensive side. If you're going to splurge, go with that. All right, the Whitlaw, which is a Highland Park. There is a Whitlaw Mountain by Highland Park, therefore the name Whitlaw. Hey, if you ask a couple very smart people, they find things out for you, and they tell me, someone said, Jason, of course it's Highland Park, it's Whitlaw. And I was like, why isn't it why isn't it Whitrule, R-U-L-E, instead of law? And they wrote back, Jason, it's a mountain very close by. It's one of those secret stories everyone knows about. And I was like, I didn't, thank you. The syrupy moment is more. It's hotter. It's plasticine. It's really not what I can recommend. Especially after this. This is so much better. WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys and German exclusive. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for liking. Thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you very much for sharing this video and telling others about this crazy guy over here in Europe tasting whiskeys a lot more than many other people do. All the best. Bye-bye.